Relita, as you say, you're seeing delayed video upstairs in the actual courtroom where I just left. The first witness is now testifying. What you're seeing here is the judge ruling on existing motions, appeals that were put forth. There's an appellate part of this whole judicial process, a separate court that has ruled, as you heard, on the prosecution's request to bar foreign lawyers from being part of the defense team. That is namely the man you see there, the former Qatari justice minister, as well as Ramsey Clark, who is not in court today. What you will see later on as this video progresses is the defense, the man you see there, the former Qatari justice minister, Najib Nuaimi. He stands up and says that they are still worried about the security of the defense lawyers, that they were threatened at the airport, and that whatever accommodations have been worked out with the court in order to keep them safe is not working out well. They have been housed essentially in a facility, he says, that has no bathrooms. The defense has submitted a 30-page document that the judge said they are just now reviewing. They cannot rule or respond to because of the length of the document, but we're expecting the judge and the defense to have some sort of communique after the session is over. You will also see, before we hear from the first witness, again, Barzan Hassan al-Tikriti, Saddam Hussein's half-brother, in the third pew, the final pew in the back right of your screen when you see all the defendants. As the judge tried to move forward, Barzan Hassan al-Tikriti stood up, again challenging specifics of the case, that being the destruction of the orchard, the trees in the village of Dujal. He admitted that some had been destroyed, did not disclose what the reason was, but the judge very forcefully trying to bring order back to court, asking him to sit down, saying that the trial would go on and he would have time to speak at a later time. That went on for a good 5 minutes. After the half-brother, Saddam Hussein, sits down, that is when the first witness begins. The witness today, the first at least, allowing himself to be shown, he is a man, Relita, that I actually met with when I visited the village of Dujal some weeks ago, a very strong character. His name, Muhammad Ali Haidari. He is now speaking about the aftermath upstairs in the courtroom of what happened after that failed assassination attempt, that his family was taken into interrogation. He will likely describe torture that other witnesses have described in Abu Ghraib prison and at the desert facility that they were taken to after that. But again, the video you're seeing now is the appellate motion. And here, let's listen in. This is Saddam Hussein's half-brother.
Mr. Barzan, so that you are in the aware of what's going on, when you want to comment or give remarks about the witnesses' statements, the court will give you enough time during your statement. This is not a comment. This is another. Sure. Just please allow me. You will understand why I'm asking this question. But we should say we should go through Dujal because this is our subject. Dujal was the farms were plowed. That's true, and the reason is known. But I have nothing to do with that. But who is going to stand before you? Who did plow? This is another issue. How is it in you, Mr. Barzan? What you have, your comments. You can please give me time. The court has procedures and rules procedures. We're limited by. This is selective, Your Honor. If you have anything, present to us in writing. If it is related to the case, if it's outside of the case, this is a public right, a right of the public. Thousands of farms were plowed in Karbala, in Najaf, in Tikrit, in Balad, in Dulu'iyya, in Fallujah, in Kut, everywhere. Who is responsible for those plowing, Your Honor? You are responsible before me. I cannot see other than you. So who should I ask? This is a public right. Anybody who is suffering of any damage can apply for a hearing, but our court is for a special case. Others can apply. Let's call, but we are before a case that we should use analogy. You can present in writing when you are given a chance to give your statement. Now we don't have time to move to another case. But I see that you're assassinating us emotionally. By what you're doing, you're assassinating us emotionally. No, your turn will come, but this is outside the scope, and will come. wish this for you. You are being selective. Justice means you cannot be selective. This you allow and that you don't allow. No, according to the law and the rules of procedures, we're dealing with this situation. I can't be your lawyer, but you cannot, Your Honor, be accepting this. You are selective in what you're prosecuting. Those who suffer damages, they can submit and file a complaint. Call Ali Muhammad Al-Hassan Al-Haydari as a complaint witness. Your Honor, before calling the complaint witnesses, those two appeal decisions, can we get copies? And also the affidavits before the court. We would like to get the statements also distributed to us. A few moments after the... This is an important topic, Your Honor. First, we would like to express to you the extent of our tragedy coming here. There are matters that are related to here. When I read the motions, and we will respond, and you will see the response, and we will deliberate the response. It's not an issue of motions. We came and we were threatened in the airport. We were taken to a home. We were taken from the airport to a home that had no bathrooms. How can we be treated if we're not empowered to? This is a deficiency. We notified the authorities, and they will take care. We would like to document two comments in this session. First, as for the security issues, if you would, from the security standpoint, we cannot continue with this case if we have a deficiency in the security. We would like to put that on the record. The second is there is no good treatment. We're not treated well. We moved from threatening the local lawyers to issuing edicts against us on the international level. So please put those two comments on the record. You, the clerk, please put that on the record. Please, after the testimony, I would like to talk about something else. Yes. Your ID information. علي حسن محمد الدجيل. Your name? Ali Hassan Muhammad Al-Haydari Al-Dujayli. Your age? 37 years. Born 1968. Profession? Employee? Where? I'm a media professional in the media. Where do you live? I live in Dujayl, Wahda Street. Swear. I swear by God Almighty to give a testimony of full truth and not to say anything but the truth. Yes. Go ahead and file your complaint. About the Dujayl. Yes. I seek refuge in God from the devil, in the name of God most compassionate, and we seek the help of God. Praise due to God, and prayers and peace to the Prophet. Praise of in the name of God, is reciting some of the Quran. Talk to the court. Talk to the court. I would like to talk about the jail without being interrupted. Nobody is going to be interrupted. You talk about slowly and relaxed. Your Honor, in 1982, Saddam entered the city of the jail, and specifically on the 8/7/1982. Please speak slowly so that they can catch up. I mean the former Iraqi president. Specifically on Thursday, 8/7/1982. I was at that time 14 years old. I was in the middle school. In the morning of that day, there were strange things going on. For example, I saw, and I was present, there were helicopters that were flying over the city. It was unusual. Before that, we saw that a popular army and army came, and they were positioned all over the city, and I saw that. Nobody told me about that. We asked what was going on, and we were told that the president is coming to the jail. We asked where. They said in the police station, that he's there now. We asked where is he going, to the old city. Of course, you know, we are young people. The president is coming here, so we were hospitable and we wanted to receive him the best of receipt. So we were asking for the time he would come to the city. After meeting with the captain of Ali Azzi, the person in charge in the police, after that the motorcade came and entered the old city. That's where I used to live, and he stopped exactly by the Awqaf mosque in the city. That mosque is far, about 150 meters away from my house. He stayed for a little bit, maybe about an hour, around an hour, greeting people from far, being behind the security. After that, the motorcade went on the main road of the jail towards the highway towards Baghdad. So we thought that the president will leave the jail going to Baghdad. At that time, he passed through the house of Raddam Hatem. We know him because we are neighbors. He entered the house for a few minutes. We were the young people standing waiting for the motorcade. The motorcade left after a few minutes from the house of Raddam. I don't remember exactly for how long, but because we were young and excited about the president being in our city, so I don't remember exactly how long he stayed in the house of Raddam. He left Raddam's house to the highway, as I indicated before, and he reached the area of the highway as farms that had orange trees and palm trees, and the palm trees at least are 100 or 200 years. So he went to a den. The palm trees farm area close to the Ibrahimiyya school, and we heard fire shots, fire shooting, and maybe if you were to count them, maybe about 15-20 shots, no more. After that, there was random and heavy shooting that frightened and scared people, and the soldiers and the police started to hit people with the weapons, and I was one who was struck with the back of a weapon, and also with the weapon were hit. My niece was one wounded who was moved to a hospital. Her name was Batul. My niece was one wounded who was moved to a hospital. Her name was Batul Muhammad Hassan Muhammad Al-Haydari. This is another story. After I finish talking about this incident, this is another story. After I finish talking about this incident, after the area was under heavy random shooting with different kinds of weapons, whether it was, I came to know those kinds of weapons after I served in the military. Those were automatic weapons on a jeep vehicle that were to be used against tanks, and also the helicopters were hitting on the farms. My brother was one of those who were working in the farm. Hussein Hassan Muhammad Al-Haydari is my brother. He was hit in that incident. He had more than 33 shrapnels on his left side. We did not know that he was hit. Nobody could leave his house at that time, especially families that are of the conservative families in the Dujil. After some time, during that night, the Thursday, Friday evening, they raided the security intelligence and the National Guard, and the people with military fatigue and plain clothes, with also people with the popular uniform, popular army uniform. They came and raided. They acted as guides. At that time, I only saw Dujali man. He is dead now. I don't want to mention his name. He was there in the raid. They saw a hunting rifle at her house, and they confiscated it, and they asked my father, Hassan Muhammad Abdullah. He was born in 1905. He was 77 years old. They asked him to go with them to the party headquarters. One of the men said, "Leave him alone. He will come in the morning. He's an old man." They told him at 9 o'clock in the morning, "You come." Who said so? One of those who came. We only knew one person. What's his name? His name is Abdullah Aboud Al-Haybi. He is dead now. Al-Haybi. Yes, go ahead. The next morning, my father did not go because he knows the methods. There were earlier incidents where we came to know the methods and the methodologies and the tactics of the security forces. Your Honor, is this his testimony or his father's? This is my statement. After my father refused to go, Friday afternoon, where my family, all of my family were fasting. It was Ramadan, the blessed month of Ramadan. There were 6 boys and 4 girls, and my father and mother, we were all at home. They raided us after they broke in the outside door. Those who entered the house, we did not know who they were. from the popular army, from the security. They were strangers. We did not know any of them. They entered shouting and yelling. It was intimidating and frightening. When I remember that, God is my witness, I immediately get a depression and frustration when I remember and recall that incident. They said we will only, and this is how they did it with all the families of the jail. They said we want you only for 5 minutes for some questioning. They took us all. The father is 77 years old. The youngest was 6 years old. Ibrahim was born in 1976, so he was at that time 6 years old. My brother Jawad was born 1971, so he was about 11 years old. Mahmoud was executed. My brother Muhsin was executed. My brother Ahmed and my 4 sisters, Suad, Zainab, Layla, and Asma. And my mother, Majouda Shukr Mahmoud, and my father, Haj Hassan Muhammad Hassan Al-Haydari. If you allow me, Your Honor, I'd like some water, please. They took us to the party headquarters. They took us in cars. I think they were Mercedes cars belonging to the security, I think. They took us to the party headquarters that was in Asri Street, close to the Sharq Center. We entered the party headquarters as if it's the day after the day of judgment. We had people who had their head covers. We had people who were blindfolded with white piece of cloth or black piece of cloth. We as a family, we walked through bodies, dead bodies, in the outside hallway of the party headquarters at the door. They wanted us to identify the bodies. We knew who the bodies were because they are our
We are watching testimony from the first witness today as the trial of Saddam Hussein and 7 co-defendants has resumed. These are the first pictures that we have received. As usual, we're receiving them with a 20-minute delay, at least a 20-minute delay. This is what happened more than 20 minutes ago at the beginning of the trial, the beginning of the testimony of Ali Hassan Mohammed al-Haidari. I'd like to bring in an expert that we have brought here to put things in perspective for us, Mark Ellis from the International Bar Association. He'll be joining us in just a moment to tell us a little bit more about the significance of what we're watching. We're watching some very emotional testimony from this man. He is now 37 years old. He says that he works in the media. At the time of the Dujale killings and atrocities, he was 14 years old, and he is sharing his recollections of that fateful day in 1982 when there was a failed assassination attempt against Saddam Hussein, the now deposed Iraqi president, as a result of which the Dujale atrocities allegedly occurred, atrocities that scarred him as a young boy, as we hear him bring him here as we are hearing him testify here. I'd like to go now to Mark Ellis. He is now joining us from London to talk a little bit more about what we heard before al-Haidari started testifying, and that was a review of several motions that have been brought, several appeal motions. Mark, thank you very much for joining us. Tell us a little bit about the significance of what we saw at the beginning of this video, and that is those appeal motions which were reviewed by the chief judge.
I thought that was very important because if you remember the last time we were watching these court proceedings, there was I think confusion as to how these motions were going to be handled, what was the process for the defense to bring up these motions, were the judges going to deal with this in writing, was it going to listen to oral arguments, and it seems to me that the judges have now settled into a process here. So we now have heard that there were in fact motions made, that the motions were decided by the trial court, and in fact it moved up to the appellate court, who also made the decision, and this dealt with the whether or not foreign counsel would be permitted to participate in these trials. Not a surprising decision. I think that was consistent with the statute, consistent with international law. But the fact is that they seem now to be setting forth a procedure consistent with their own court procedures on how to deal with these motions, and that I think is exceedingly important to be able to show the legal foundations for the decisions that are being made.
And do you think that we're seeing more control of the proceedings in the courtroom?
Well, I think so. You saw a little bit of that when one of the defendants stood up and was beginning to argue a number of different points that the judge, Rizgar, did not feel were relevant to the proceedings, and I thought the judge was quite firm to say, you will have your opportunity to speak, you will have an opportunity to present these issues in writing, but for now we're moving on with the court proceedings and we're moving on with witnesses. I think that's a favorable development, and one that shows that the judges are getting more comfortable with controlling the court proceedings, and that to me is exceedingly important.
Although even if you look at the way this court, these proceedings are set, the rules of these proceedings allow defendants to talk to the judge, to address the witnesses. This is a different kind of procedure, and it lends itself to the judge having more challenges to keeping control, it seems to me.
Yes, and this is one of the unique aspects of this trial. It's more of a hybrid trial, so you have court proceedings, so you have both domestic law, including their procedural law, the Iraqi procedural law, and international law combined. And so the ability for defense attorneys and even defendants to seek or to question on different issues is something that's permitted, but it is to the discretion of the judge to decide how far they will permit the defendants to move in that direction. And I do think, though, very importantly, in the statute or in the rules of procedures for the court, a defendant is not able to make any direct comments or question a witness unless it's through the court itself. And I believe that that's where you'll get a better sense of the judges taking control over it. You cannot have a repeat of where Saddam Hussein or defendants were able to question or even badger a witness. That, I think, is unacceptable. But again, I think you'll get a better sense as these judges have a better handle on how they're going to make this balance and how they're going to control the decorum of the court. And I think they're moving in that direction, and it's a favorable one.
Well, Mark Ellis with the International Bar Association. We'll take a little break now to keep listening to these proceedings, and we'll talk a little bit more about the significance of what we're witnessing as this trial has resumed. Let's listen in.
Was flooded on us. God is my witness. Some even had to sleep in the toilet because it was so overcrowded. I remember we had Habib Ja'far, who was the oldest. He was about 90 years, and the youngest was in the same room, was born in 1972 or 73, so he's about 9 or 10 years old at that time. But many of the youngs were separated. Maybe for example, my brother Ibrahim stayed with his mom. He was 1976. But those 9 or 10 years, they were with the men. At that room, in that room, there were old people and young people. At that same day, they started the interrogation and the torture. God is my witness. The man would be taken walking, and when he comes back, he will be thrown in a blanket. God is my witness. When we were at that age, we had bleeding, we had pale faces because of the electrocution. If there's torture more, there will be a hose, a plastic hose that would be melted on the body. The plastic cables will be poured as they were melting on our bodies, and we saw those people who are in such pain with plastic that's solidifying on the bodies. I think one of those who were tortured, a man who was in the military, he was probably born in the 50s or 60s, also Mehdi Ali Assad, who is one of my relatives, and the signs of torture are still on this man's body. His shackles, the marks of the shackles on his hands and feet are still present, and he's ready to come, and you will see the torture, the evidence of torture on his body. And there are people whose feet were burned, I remember, and he's a man who was about, at that time, more than 40 years old. He was married and had one child who was also in the desert. They were with me, his child and his wife. God may help us. I cannot express the torture and describe the torture and the pain that we had to suffer through. We stayed for a while in the security intelligence center for about 70 days. A man will go walking and come back and thrown in the blanket with bleeding because of the interrogation and the torture. As of the food, I don't want to talk about that, but I want to talk about how the prisoners suffered because of lack of food and medicine and care, and the indifference of the guards vis-a-vis the prisoners. We used to get the food in the morning. First, the water that was given to us was not to be drink. It was steaming. I remember when Barzan says that it was from the tank in July. No, but it was not. It cannot be steaming. God is my witness. We couldn't even wash. We would move it from one container to the other so that it's less warm, so that we can drink it. As of the water, that's for the water. As for the food, it used to come in the morning. We had a loaf of bread for each person every day, and you're free. You want to eat it in the morning, at noon, or at night. It's your share, your ration for the whole day. That's your problem. You eat it when you like. We'll get the breakfast in the morning. They bring us soap, and before our eyes we see that the guards will take hot water from the tank, and they would put some soup of it, and they would used to come to the toilet, and they would put, and that was the soup they would give to us. God is our witness. If I would like to count, nobody ever got full. Nobody felt full. We were all hungry. As of the lunch, it was some soup. The plastic container, which is this size, 6 to 8 people will share. It's not even enough for 2 persons. They were all hungry and they were all share. That's the lunch. The supper, we would get soup. It's paste and water. If you have bread from the morning, you can add it to the meal. If not, you can just use a spoon to drink some soup with the breakfast. Because I swore to say the truth, I forgot to tell you that some tea would be with the breakfast. That's in the intelligence for about 70 days treated like that. And also amongst the torture that we saw, I saw it my eyes. My brother Mohsen, he was 17 years old. He was born 65. He was in the high school, in the middle school. God is my witness. He was hit 4 times in on his back, and he had a mark of about 2 centimeters deep. He continued to sleep on his belly because he couldn't, for 70 days, because he couldn't sleep on his back. What did he do? What did he do to deserve that? He was a middle school. I was 14 years old. For 4 years, nobody interrogated me or asked me a single question. I did not know why, for what crime I was arrested. I was not presented to any judge, to any official. I'm one of hundreds who were subjected to the same methodology and the same tactics. All of the families of the jail were treated like that. We stayed for more than 70 days in the intelligence. After that, they brought lists of names, and my name was on those lists, and my father also, and my brothers Ahmed, Mahmoud, and Muhsin was separated from us. After torture, he was separated from us. And here I'd like to tell you a story about when we were in the intelligence. One of my sisters her name is Zainab Hassan Muhammad, born in 1966. At that time she was 16 years old. She says they took me down one time. I was unconscious in a hallway. I don't know if it was the first or the highest floor, but God is witness. My witness, I saw my brother Muhsin being tortured before my eyes. She said I was frightened. So they were torturing a man, they were torturing his sister by watching him being tortured. So I saw Barzan. She says, God is my witness. She says in the first days of the arrest, well, concentrate on what you saw in your eyes. Also in the intelligence center, we suffered dermatological disorders, contagious skin diseases. My brother Jawad, he was born in 1971, and we suffered from a fever, very high fever, and the medical care was not good. After my father insisted, because before him, his eyes, two of his sons are dying. He would knock the door and bang on the door to get the guards. They took us to the hallway, and we were examined by somebody, and we were given an injection every day, and we stayed for about 3 days or so. After the 3 days, those young people with me were healed and recovered, but my situation deteriorated, and also those who suffered from torture was a man, an old man, sick because of the torture. They took him, and I was walking. He was dragged on the floor because he was sick, and they used to always take him like that way. He's at the verge of death, and at that time, this incident they put him in the hallway, and the guards took me at that time. They took me down the stairs. I don't remember how many flights. I arrived to a hallway that had lights, and the doors were different. And the hallway was different, and I hear screams and shouting. After that, suddenly the shouting stopped, and a body went out in a blanket, and I thought it was one of my brothers, but no, it was Jassim Muhammad al-Tufi. I think he was dead because he was not moving, and they took him upstairs. I don't know where they took him. After I heard the shouting, a group of people went out. They were heavily armed at that time, and at the beginning, and with them, leading them was Barzan. At that time, I had a fever. I was left on the ground of the hallway. I leaned against the wall and I extended my feet. I could not hold myself. In spite of that, they made me walk down to give me medicine because they said there was a doctor there. At that time, Barzan came and stood on top of my head, and he asked the guards, what's wrong with this guy? They told him he had fever and he was not healed after treatment. He asked me what my name was. I said Ali. He said, what Ali? He said, Ali Hassan Muhammad. He said the name is not, he is familiar with the name. I think he remembers it. He said, are you the brother of Hussein? Hussein that I told you was hit in the farm, because he was subjected to strange and extreme tortures, and his name was known to all the security and intelligence forces. He asked me if I was his brother. He kicked me. This kick even made me forget even the fever. He kicked me so hard. He told them, don't treat him. This family does not deserve to live. After that, they took me out up to the room, and I was still in pain for weeks because of that kick in my leg. After that, we were moved to the prison of Abu Ghraib that had sections special to the intelligence. We saw nobody and nobody saw us. Even the windows were blocked. It was a section in Abu Ghraib that comprised of 2 stories. In the lower level, we had our children and women, and the upper level, there were some of the men of the city. They were imprisoned. They were moved before us to Abu Ghraib. We came later. When we reached Abu Ghraib, all the family had been arrested, including the military. My brother was in the military, Saad was in the military. They were taken from their military units. Salim and his family were arrested. All the family, 43 people is my family. The 77 years is the oldest, and the youngest was born in the prison. Zina was born, and after 2 months she died in the prison before the eyes of her mom. With her in Abu Ghraib also, many other children died. For example, I remember a child, his name was Hisham Fakhri Sabri. He died because of the bad mistreatment. If anybody says that it's natural for a child to die, I'll tell them that many of our women had 7 kids born before that, and nobody died. So those children that amongst them Hashim Fakhri Sabri, and another child, his father was also imprisoned, Ali Majid, Raida Mahmoud Majid, and also another prisoner's child, and the child was named Sadiq, and he was dead after a little bit. And also another Ubays Ibrahim Dewi al-Khazraji, a child, a female child. Those 6 children, or 5, they were not all that died in the prison. That's all I know. In Abu Ghraib, those children died. The treatment with the mothers, they did not care about. They did not have any humane treatment. They did not give formula for the kids. There was no milk, no medical treatment. The guards, for example, used to mock the prisoners. If the prisoner come and they would ask, who is sick? I was 14 years old. I expected to go down or get a medicine, a vitamin C or something like that. Instead of being given a medicine, if I said I had a headache, I would be kicked on my head. If I said my abdomen, we will be hit on the abdomen. This is no exaggeration. I'm not exaggerating. Almost all of the guards, some of them, maybe only a very few of them were nicer in the treatment, but overall the guards treated us like that. We stayed in Abu Ghraib for a period of time where sleep started before 12 midnight, and it was an order. So if we were given an order to sleep, we had to go. If they would say wake up, we have to wake up, whether we're sick. We had also medical conditions on skin disorders in Abu Ghraib. If we used to eat by order, if they come and see one of the prisoners asleep when it's time to be awakened, and we suffered from that, they would take him out before all of the prisoners, and he will be hit by at least 15 times with cable, and after that he will be in solitary confinement.
We've been watching the testimony of the first